We're brought to you by yournews.com. That's your news, yournews.com. This is David Toulis. I argue very laconically, very quietly, but insistently that you should love your neighbor and buy local. And by that, I mean local artists. Okay, that means local artists, patronize local artists, and care about their work, care about their persons. And their living is from your admiration of their view, their claim of what the world is about, their claim of what reality is about on canvas, all right, or in stone or in metal or in glass, or as Robert Schoolfield will suggest, in mixed media on canvas. And we have Robert Schoolfield, whose new work is just now appearing at the airport here in the studio. And we do think you should buy local, you should patronize local. Again, we have an understanding of local, which is partial and it's in pencil. Okay, it's not localism is not the end of all things. It is a convenient metaphor for me, your host here, David Toulis, at 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4. A convenient metaphor for me to encourage you, my listener, to care about Chattanooga and think that somehow Chattanooga is indeed the center of the universe. And that is, and I want you to think that because we're made that way. We're made, we are souls with bodies, right? We're made in space and time. We are souls in flesh, and we are bound by our location and geography. Makes a claim upon us and our limitations and where we can be. So the sinking of a ferry in off Indonesia with 300 perishing is a two paragraph story. And a broken water main on Main Street is a 6-column story on the top of a page. So we have an understanding of where the center is, and it's here just by God's plan for the moment for us, right? And this is David Toulis, and Robert Schoolfield is flying in and out. He is at the airport. Robert, what are the works that are available for my listener when he goes to get his beloved at the airport from her recent trip? What is he going to be seeing from your hand and your brush?
Yeah, that's called the Effort series. That's a series of paintings that I came up with. I had an idea one day. It was when I was going through a phase of being really down with life. I was really down and depressed, and I just had this idea of like a struggle to reach outside of myself to do anything at all. And so I came up with this idea. It's called the Effort series, where it's just pretty much a blank canvas with one paint mark slung on it. And then I thought that was kind of funny too, because, a lot of people see art or abstract art specifically, and they think, well, anybody can do that. And,
right. And what is the effort at all in a painting where the painter has simply slashed a few thousand drops on some canvas? Where's the effort in that?
Right. But some people, they don't necessarily look at the deeper meaning to things or art in general. So for that specific series, it's kind of, it's talking about overcoming that, because you could do nothing, you can sit in that and wallow around and feel bad about yourself, or you can try to get out of that.
Well,
and
are you saying is what you're saying now, Robert Schoolfield, what the viewer is getting as he passes by this display at the airport? Go back for a second.
Okay.
What is the work that this display at the airport is doing upon the viewer? What work are you trying to accomplish in that person's eye and in the soul behind?
Well, they're aesthetically pleasing. They're bright colors. I use different color combinations for each one. The initial one that I did was just white and black, and then I figured, I'll make a different painting. So, there's like a blue background with yellow, and there's just different color combinations. And then they have they're all displayed, like there's 4 of them, and then there's 4 on top of each other. They're all 2 by 2 feet. So there's 8 total. The main thing, I wanted it to catch people's attention because there are bright colors. So if you're anywhere in the lobby of the airport, you're going to notice them to your top right. If you go up the escalator, they're on the top right of that second level. And if you go up there, there's a plaque on the right side that you can read about those paintings. And I'm kind of explaining what I was saying earlier on that plaque. You can read what they're about.
In one of your comments, Robert Schoolfield, I'll read this. If I explained very little about what I do, it would be too much. And if I explained a lot, it wouldn't be enough. So here we are in a different medium than that in which you're expert. We're talking here in words. Our exertions before the listener are purely oral, and they're purely sequential proposals of words and sentences. And we only have so much time, and yet you want to interest my listener in who you are and what you do. Why should he care about you? Why should his eye land on your work? What is the benefit to him? What is the connection with a different world or a different reality that you're trying to give to him or impose upon him with your paintings?
Well, what you were saying earlier about the universe and life and all that, it's pretty much that. There's life is expressing itself through everything, and I think everybody has this creativity inside of them, and there's greatness inside of them that is it's everywhere. Everything in life, if you're looking for it, you can see it. And if you can tap into that, then you can really, do things at your fullest potential. And for me, it's just a sharing of my life and my life's journey through art. I'm expressing my, my ups and downs and in betweens with everything that I've been through in life. And
this is David Toulis, and we're talking with artist Robert Schoolfield. He's 28 years old, a Chattanoogan, and his work is just now appearing at the Chattanooga Metropolitan Airport, the Effort series. Now, for the viewer on YouTube and the viewer on Facebook, Robert, they can see that I'm holding up one of your works behind me. What are we looking at?
Yeah, this one's called The Happening. I did this in 2016, and to me, this is about when you kind of take control of your life and you make things happen. I wanted to be an artist, so I started diving into it, and I feel like this painting behind me is one of my personal favorites, but I feel like it's one of the most profound that I've done. It really captures my style. I think I've developed my own style over the years from many different influences and other artists, and then I've kind of ran with it. I've kind of taken what they've done and I've built upon it and came up with my own thing.
Well, there's no center to this work. It has many things that are in it in the way of multimedia. For example, there are maybe, I'm not sure, photocopies or some kind of version of Life magazine, the name Life from the magazine. There's some type. There's a book cover in miniature form. And there are a lot of squiggles and looks like graffiti almost on parts of this work. What's the center of this painting?
Well, I didn't want there to be one, because in art, there's certain rules that some people make up that don't necessarily have to be true. Like a focal point is what you're talking about. Like one certain spot you look at, and I mean there could be, like the life symbol is red, so some people might be drawn to that. But ultimately, I did not want there to be a focal point. I like to.
Is that an argument you're making to my listener that there is not a focal point?
Well, there could be either or. The interpretation is going to be different depending on person to person. So I would say that there is not one, but somebody may find one.
In what way is your work postmodern? What is postmodern, and how does your work fit into that theme, which is the dominant paradigm for today?
Well, culturally. I think it's my own version. Like I was saying earlier, everybody's expressing their own version of life, and this is mine. So everybody's story is valid, and this is just what I do. It's a physical representation of my life and everything I've been through.
This is David Toulis, and we're talking with Robert Schoolfield, who is an artist, and he has, you describe your work, I guess, is one of the main words is mixed media, right? Which
yes.
means it has not just paint. You're a painter primarily, but you have these other things on the canvas that are, not say physical objects, that are on that flat plane of the canvas.
Yeah, I use pages of books. Like that is an actual Life magazine cut out there. I work in a restaurant, and there's a bunch of guest checks, and I write things on them. I like to write a lot, and I use those. Just anything in life that I feel relatable to me, I use in my artwork. And then it's always evolving, because I'm always changing, I'm always growing. So my artwork is following in those footsteps as well.
I remember reading Susan Sontag's book Against Interpretation as a young man. I was I think a student at University of Virginia in studying English, and I read her book. Maybe it was working on a master's degree, and she argues very eloquently that art somehow is beyond definition. It's really beyond categorization. It's beyond description. And she suggests, in a way, that questions to the artist, like the kinds of questions I'm asking you, are kind of harassment, right? That discussion of work or discussion about ideas that seem to emanate from a piece of work are simply irrelevant, and that words are a kind of false parallel, a faux parallel to the experience that the work is intended to give to the viewer. And that's what I'm trying to get at. What I'm asking you is, what does in that painting, or the ones at the airport, what is the viewer supposed to understand that he didn't understand before? Because art does have the power. It has a kind of religious power. It has a power to change the person who's viewing it, to make him assume something new, to make him see something new, to be, maybe even to be a different person, maybe a better person, maybe a worse person. But it does have an influence that is cultural and it's personal, and it does touch the soul of the human being. Robert Schoolfield. So I'm pressing you now, and you may say, well, your question is just harassing me.
No.
Go ahead, take another shot at it.
Well, yeah, what you were saying about that book. I mean, I say that too. Words get in the way of what I really want to say, so that's why I do this. But ultimately, I would want them to realize that they can do anything they want with their life. If there's that one thing that they're thinking about, that they'll say, "Oh, I want to do that one day." Well, that's today. You can start doing that today. That's what I did several years ago, and this is where I am now. So I guess that would be, if there's like an ultimate meaning, it would be for them to chase their dreams, or their life's purpose, whatever that may be. Everybody has their different idea of that.
The classical school of arts would say that the modern painter, the modern sculptor, does not have any artistic skill, and to mask the lack of skill and training, he simply says, well, my work is about me. It's about my inner emoting. It's my projection of my inner soul. And I don't need to have hours and years in training in, painting a leg or a hand. I don't need that, because I'm giving you my all here right now. It's immediate, and here it is. What do you make of that kind of argument? And where did you get some of your training, Robert Schoolfield?
Yeah, I would say that's somewhat true. I think what's on there, I mean, it's just paint and just stuff. I mean, you can make any meaning behind it that you can.
You're making less of it than I am. Why is that?
Well, because I mean, that's what it really is ultimately, but we put value to it. And to me, it does mean a lot. But at the same time, when I look at it that way, then I don't hold back anymore. I further my potential, because it means everything. But at the same time, it's something that's going to eventually fade away and be lost in history, like most things. So that's why I kind of talk about it in that way.
Is your viewer, Robert Schoolfield, a better person after looking at your work, and how?
They could be, if they dive into those aspects that people run away from as an artist.
So that means giving more than 60 seconds to stare at your work, or is it more than 90 seconds? Or more than 5 minutes?
Well, I mean, if in today's world, everything happens so fast that if I get a second glance, I think that's a pretty big deal.
Because people are impatient, and we live in the age of the image, and people feed on images, and you have to throw them at the viewer 1,000 a minute, or they're not satisfied. And here you're saying, I've got one image, and it's this. The painting I'm holding here is 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide.
Yes,
and you have to stop and you have to look at it.
Right.
Well, what are we looking at here, Robert?
This one is called Cacophony. It is that one was kind of an experiment. That was several paintings before it ended up with that. And what I did, like, honestly, I didn't really care about it. And then I set it on the floor and I dropped different ink and paint on there. And when it dried, I thought it looked great. And actually, I have one patron, and he was looking at it. He wanted to see the new work that I made, and he said, "That's like that reminds me of the word cacophony." So I kind of stole it from him, which that word, it means it's like a distracting background noise, or something annoying, and that's kind of it looks like an explosion. The center sort of looks like it's been burned or something. It has a really good effect.
Now, in your work, you're not showing objective reality. You're not showing something that's visible, that my listener or my viewer, the viewer of our YouTube page, let's say, or our Facebook page, can see. There's a projection of an inner experience, right? Some state of your mind, or is it something less than that? Is it just simply, well, I'll try this, oh, I'll try that, and let's just see how this looks, and then it's just a matter of purely visual perception that this works, and I'm ready to stop this painting now. I've dripped enough drip on it of red and blue. I can stop.
Well, it's a little bit of both. I never have an overall effect that I'm going for. Most of the time, occasionally I do, but usually I know that if I start, it's going to turn out well if I put everything I have into it. And the interpretation for me, I mean, it means everything. It means, I feel like a lot of it is just a physical representation of the feelings, the things that you can't describe in life. And thoughts do go along with that too.
This is David Toulis, and we are at 800-8949. That's 800-8949. And caller, what's on your mind? Thanks for calling.
I have a silly question, and David and I have been debating this for a long time. As an artist, I want your professional opinion. Would you consider a radio tower a work of art, or a man-made structure like an antenna a work of art? And I'll listen on the radio. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, it could be. I think anything in life could be art. I mean, we're no different than nature. Me making art is, to me, it's no different than like a tree growing a leaf or something. It's just what I do. So that, a man made that tower. So, I mean, I would definitely consider that artwork.
Well, I'm holding in my hand a yellow marker and a cartridge, a bullet from an SKS rifle. Robert Schoolfield, would you condescend so far from the perch of artist as to say that these two objects are works of art?
I mean,
that's what you're doing. If you step, if you say that they are, you're debasing.
You're
yourself.
Right. I did just say that. You could argue whether it is or isn't. It's up to the person to decide that. I would say whether they would think that.
Are you suggesting, Robert Schoolfield, that there is no external standard?
There's no definite definition for that. Is what I would say.
Is there an objective standard for beauty?
I think that would be subjective.
Okay, so the answer is no.
Right.
There's no way that anybody can agree that this is and yet men all say, well, that's a beautiful woman, and this woman over here is plain. We do not believe you. Men practically don't believe that. Looking at the visage of a beautiful female, she's beautiful, and that one's not. And yet in your life work, you're a 28-year-old artist here in Chattanooga, you're suggesting that there is not an external standard by which your work can be judged, or the work of anybody else.
Well, I mean, if somebody wanted to judge it, that's up to them. As far as comparison, I mean, everything is different. So you can find similarities, but I mean, if there's one overall conclusion, to me, then I don't ever find that, but to somebody else, maybe they do.
Okay. So, but that's what we're hearing here from Robert Schoolfield is the definition of postmodernism. There is no standard, and there is no beauty. There's no ugly. There's no right. There's no wrong. There's no just. There's no unjust. Effectively, right? That's what postmodernism says. There is no standard by which to judge any act, whether it's an artistic act, a military act, a legal act, a love act, a personal act. There is no standard. It just all depends on you. We all have our own separate realities. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that could be true. I don't know how it is to be David, and I don't think you fully understand how it would be to be me.
This is David Toulis. Caller, you're live on the air with Robert Schoolfield, Chattanooga artist. What's on your mind?
You're really stretching it, Toulis. They have a clothespin in Philadelphia. It's sculpted, and they call that art, a clothespin. So, I mean, art is in the eyes of the beholder, but, you're really stretching it with this guy to say there's no standard. All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay. So you have a defender, Robert Schoolfield, that there are standards in law, there are standards of morality, presumably, but in art, there is not an external standard of what is beautiful, right, and true. And the reason that there's not, you're saying, well, that's because I'm expressing my inner realms with my hand and my paint.
Well, yeah, some of it could be imagination. It doesn't necessarily have to be like really serious. If there's like a, the paperclip thing, there's minimalistic art. I mean, if you can make something like this, that's kind of like what the effort series is if you can think of a clever meaning or interpretation to put behind it, then it can somewhat justify what it is and give people a better understanding.
Robert Schoolfield, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Robert's work is available, his latest efforts at the airport, and it's called the Effort Series. And that began just a few days ago and will be on for how long?
I have not decided that yet. We did not come to a conclusion.
Okay, and how can we find out more about you? Real quick, what's your website? Well, we don't have time. Just look him up, Robert Schoolfield. You can find him in a flash online. This is David Toulis, Nooga Radio.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio.